Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw Felice light up, but I can't hear her.
You can't hear me, Fred? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Fred. Okay, good.
עכשיו הם שומעים.
Good evening.
Sound check. Can everyone hear me? Okay, all right.
Yes, I hear you.
Yes.
She's gone.
Hello.
Hey, Calissa.
Hi, Nia. It's Felice.
Hey, good evening,
Hi.
Felice.
Good evening.
Okay, we'll give it about another minute or so. I think we have the majority. I think I see a number, the majority of the committee is here this evening. So we'll give about another minute and then we'll get started. I want to thank everyone for showing up on time, on time this evening. All right, you all sound very quiet. Can I just get a sound check and somebody say something very quickly?
Check.
Here.
Hey,
Right here.
check.
Okay,
check.
yeah, I'm having an audio issue on this side. Bear with me 1 second. Let me just correct
Yeah,
it.
I had silence when I got on.
Fred, you may need to come out of the meeting and come back and sign back in and rejoin audio. Sometimes that works.
Okay, Mia, I think I just heard you. Can you just give me another quick check?
Hey, Fred.
Perfect. All right.
Okay.
The physician has healed himself. I can hear everyone now. Okay, the time is now 7:04 p.m. We're going to call the meeting to order. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening for our February 2023 meeting of our Transportation Committee of Community Board 9. Very briefly, I just want to call the roll. I believe I saw a number of people. So Paco, I see you. Callista, I see you as well. Ms. Fleming, I have you.
Present.
Okay, Mr. Greenberg, I see you as well. Mr. Pilcotti, I see you. And Ms. Robertson, I see you. Are there any other members that I missed? I think the only person I'm missing is Jeff Branham on?
Not yet.
Okay.
You hear me? This is Shalva Kapital from the Union Car Service.
Yep, and we see you, sir, as well. So we're going to get to you very shortly on the agenda. So thank you for coming this evening. Okay, is Mr. Granham on? Is Jeff on?
He's on. He's on. He's getting ready to come on now.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much.
No
Okay,
problem.
so we have, okay, he's logged in, so we're gonna give him the check for quorum. Okay, so we have quorum. I count 8 members present. We have a quorum. I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. Before we begin, I do want to make a couple of adjustments to the agenda that was sent out. So right now we have the call to order. Item 2 will be the application, the license renewal that we'll be considering. We have committee updates. There are a couple of extra bullet points I wanted to add. So I wanted to add an item D regarding the transportation town hall, and item E, a conversation on the bus network redesign. Are there any objections to us adding that to the agenda for this evening? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then after that, we'll be able to entertain any old business, which I do not believe we have anything tabled, and new business as well. Okay, so at this time, we are going to move on to item 2. So this evening, the Transportation Committee will be considering an application from Union Limo and Car Service for a base license renewal. Okay, I'm gonna mispronounce your name. How do you say your last name, sir? Oh, you're muted. We can't hear you. Oh, muted again. Hold on.
Vital,
Kavital?
yes.
Okay, Mr. Kavital. So we have Mr. Kavital joining us this evening, representing Union Limo and Car Service. So I believe the application materials were provided to the Transportation Committee members. At this time, sir, if you tell us a little bit about your business, how long you've been in operation, and anything else that would help us in terms of understanding your application before us this evening.
Yeah, first of all, good evening to everybody. We are operating from 1991. We give most of the service we give to the community in the area. And we, like every 3 years, we coming to the community to ask to get another 3 years.
Okay. How many cars operate out of your base currently?
Right now, we have 5 cars. And
Okay.
we're trying our best to bring more drivers, but it's very, very hard.
Understood. Okay. Additionally, you have 5 cars. Oh, where are the cars stored? Where are they parked at?
We parked on Utica 1230.
Okay, so they parked on Utica Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's all I have at this time. And your application is due when?
April 30th.
April 30th. Okay. At this time, I will open the floor for Transportation Committee members to ask questions. And then if there is anyone, any residents who are visiting us this evening who wish to ask questions as well, we'll provide an opportunity. Okay, so we'll begin. Are there any, if we just go by raise hand so that way we can recognize and just keep a little bit of order. Are there any members of the Transportation Committee who have questions for the applicant? Okay, Ms. Fleming, I see you. We'll take you in a second to create the list. Anyone else on transportation have any questions for the applicant? We're shy today. Okay, all right. Oh, okay, I see you, Paco. All right, I was gonna say. And we have Mr. Abraham after that. Okay, all right, so we'll begin. Ms. Fleming, go ahead, you have the floor.
Oh, just a quick question. You indicated that you have 5 cars in your fleet. So I presume this is, I guess, as a result of maybe the situation with the pandemic, but at the height, you said you were open since 1991. How many cars have been in your fleet?
The most we had was 45 cars.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
And so
because it's also because of Uber. Uber is the problem we have right now with this business is Uber, when you register the car with Uber, the insurance is very cheap. It's like $3,000. When you register the car in a car service, it's close to $6,000. So the drivers running away, they still working with us. I have a lot of times bring drivers from that was working with me before, and right now they're registered with Uber, but they're still working with me. But I understand them. Listen, it's a big difference in the insurance, and I don't think it's a fair, because if they make insurance for all the transportation for the same price, I think it should be fair enough to survive in the business. But when you put Uber for $3,000 and you put car service for $6,000, the driver, he want to work with you, but he transfer the car to Uber. And if when you transfer the car to Uber, you need to also work with Uber. So they really slowly killing the car service business. And I think the only way to survive right now is at least to make the insurance the same price for everybody. Like this, driver will stay with you because they anyway stay with you. And they anyway they're working with you. But they transfer the car to Uber to Lyft because of the price for the insurance.
So you indicated the price for the Uber is 3,000 and the price for the car service is 6,000. So I guess there's some factors of the liability in the policy that's not covered by Uber versus with you?
No, it's because they said that when you're working with the car service, so you need to have the trouble light, you need to have the camera, and the chance that you will have problem with the customers because we're getting calls, so we don't know who is the customer. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the insurance say because of that, the insurance is more higher. With Uber, it's a different system. He can see the customer, he can see everything. So the insurance said because of that, the insurance we're going to charge those companies that will be cheaper.
So the liability is the cold call of the customer that you don't know the customer, where Uber has all the information maybe? I don't know.
Yes, because with Uber, let's say when the customer call to Uber, so he have all the information. When a customer calling me, I have the telephone number of the customer and I have the name, okay? But I don't have his information about from where he live or something like this. With the Uber system,
Okay.
you know everything about the customer.
Okay.
Just
Thank
to hazard a guess, I think with the Uber system, it's not always a cab. You're not always taking fares. So it might double as a personal car for some period of time as well. Whereas I think with these, with delivery service, they're always cabs. So they just treat them in that sense as well. I guess that's a guess I'm just taking. I'm not sure, but I think that if that gives any clarity. Mr. Abraham, we saw you as well.
Yeah, so I have two questions. One for the committee, I guess. I guess I can't recall. I've been on the committee for a long time, but I can't recall a previous applicant or what that conversation was. But is there specific criteria by which we should be making our decision? Is there a certain, are there parameters that we should be using as a guide other than just, he seems like a very nice man and he's operated in the community for many years, and I want to support anyone in the community. So I'm curious for any guidance, perhaps from you, Fred, or anyone else has done this before, if there's certain criteria that we should be thinking of when deciding whether or not to approve or disapprove a license renewal. And then, so that's for the committee. And then Mr. Kvital, I see on the documents that you sent over, it says on the TLC up portal, there's a summons information. There's one open summons. I'm curious if you can tell me what that open summons is.
This summons is already paid. We don't have any more summons with the TLC. We have a clean record with the TLC. So I have nothing. We don't have no summons on the base right now. We are clear with the TLC.
What can you tell me what that summons was for?
Yes, of course. The summons was about that one of the owner of the car give the car to his mechanic, and the TLC stop him. When the TLC stop him, the mechanic said that he's a mechanic, but they put this as a driver and they take us to the court. When they take us to the court, the mechanic don't show up. The guy don't show up. The owner show up. So automatically the TLC, when I have no record, I showed them the record that the job, the time is not in our system. So I have no idea who was the driver. And in this time, in this place, there was no record of Union Car Service that the car was operated from us. But the TLC is TLC. They find us anyway guilty. We pay the summons, and that's it.
Okay. I understand. So Fred, do you know if there's any criteria then by which we should be making this decision?
We've never written out a criteria for this, but just borrowing off of the criteria we've used for other applications, like for example, if it's restaurant licenses or, establishments, typically we're looking in terms of what's their tenure in the neighborhood, what's their impact, do they have a lot of complaints on them? Are the drivers racking up tons of tickets? Are they leaving cars all over the place? Are they parking violations where they're leaving the cars all over, or they're parking in places they're not supposed to? Which is the reason why I asked if they have a base where they park the cars, because I believe they're not supposed to be on the street. So he's confirmed that there is an actual place where they store their cars, where they park the cars. And it really, I guess, those will probably be the basic ones. If they, they're an applicant who's been here before, I don't believe we have any, and Mia, you could probably confirm a little bit more. Do we have any complaints about the applicant as well, or have we seen anything in 311?
I've submitted a request to 71st regarding any open issues, and Officer Connor sent return any information for the site for the Union car limo. And they're at 311 Kingston, and that's Kingston and Union Street.
Okay, but as best as you can tell, there are no open complaints or violations.
No, yeah, and just speaking to a bit more of what Paco asked, previous instances, financial statements, if there is zoning or building information, the spaces on the ground floor of a 3-floor building on Kingston, and their operating plan, and of course, off-street parking plan. And for this, he's a 4-car operation. I'm assuming this is from times when bases were much larger operations, and fair information.
Okay.
Okay. Then the only other thing I'll add, and because to be honest, it still is in my mind. I know you came to our meeting last month, and I think there weren't documents there, but the concern I have is, for anyone, but especially a car service, is safety. And that's why I know I had emailed the community board asking if we had the license plates that we could check the public records of those cars. But I know at last month's meeting, you joined us while driving, which, to me is extremely dangerous to be on a Zoom while driving.
You're right 100%. It was a big mistake. I'm very sorry about it, but really, out of record, like I was coming to you guys. I thought the meeting is in the place, in the office. So then I realized that it's on the Zoom, but it's anyway. You're right 100%. I'm not supposed to zoom in when I was driving.
Right.
I have a record of very clean record. I don't remember the last time the police stopped me for a traffic violation or something like this. I'm a very careful driver, and I'm always teaching my driver the same thing. But you're right, in this case, I was wrong, and I'm very sorry about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Herbert, I do see you. I just want to make sure we check with all, get the questions from the committee members first. Are there any other committee members who have questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, we can take questions from residents as well. Mr. Herbert, you have a question?
Yeah, how are you doing? Hi, my name is Rod Herbert. I'm a resident within the community. And I guess my one question that I have is, within the past 3 years, do you track the number of accidents that you've had? And if so, how many accidents have any of your vehicles been involved in?
Thanks God, there was no accident with our cars. Thanks God.
Okay, very good. That's the only question I have, Fred.
I hope that we will continue like this.
We all do. We all do.
So do I. All right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Herbert. Are there any final questions before we close on this matter? Okay. Okay. Seeing no other questions at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the application for the renewal of the base license for Union Limo and Car Service. Does anyone wish to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Moved by Jeff Granum. Do I have a second?
Second, Val Fleming.
Second by Val Fleming. Thank you, Ms. Fleming. All right. Are there any questions, any unreadiness before we vote? Okay. Hearing none. let me ask this. So we have 8 members. Actually, let me just call the roll very quickly. Paco, do you vote in favor?
So, yes.
Okay. Callista, do you vote in favor?
Sorry, yes.
Okay. Ms. Fleming, in favor?
Yes.
Mr. Granum, in favor? In favor?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Greenberg, in favor?
Yes,
Mr. Bilcotti, in favor?
Yep.
Ms. Robertson, in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Hearing all in favor, unanimous vote of the Transportation Committee, the application is approved. The application will go before Brooklyn Community Board 9. It will go before the full board meeting, which is scheduled for later this month, sir, and we'll vote on it there. But you have an approval from the Transportation Committee, and we'll get a full board vote in a couple of weeks.
Thank you very much. God bless you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, all right. We are now going to move on to the next item of business, committee updates. So we had hoped to have a representative for DOT. We had one scheduled, but unfortunately she had a conflict. She was not able to make it for this evening. But there are a number of conversations, discussions that we've had. I'll try and provide some information, but we do have a commitment that DOT is going to have a representative coming next month. So first thing, with regards to city bike deployments. So we did have a conversation with DOT and Lyft through DOT because DOT is actually managing that process. So we are scheduled for deployments of city bike that actually are supposed to begin between this month and next month. There is a map. I'm not sure if that was sent out to the Transportation Committee, but it should be available online actually of where they are scheduled to be deployed at this time. So from our understanding is DOT is reaching out directly to the affected property owners to let them know that it's happening. And then those property owners would be responding to DOT in terms of if there's any questions or issues. We will have an opportunity to engage if, one, we receive the complaint, or two, if we see that a deployment is just not workable, and we'll have an opportunity to respond to that deployment at that time. But we're going to keep keeping an eye on that, as well as making sure that we're tracking if there's any issues or feedback we're getting from community residents. Before I move on, are there any questions with respect to that?
yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When we saw the map originally, there was a station, an additional station on Ocean Avenue somewhere between Lincoln and Parkside, and we were told they hadn't decided exactly where that would go. But there's nothing there at all now. So obviously, I think we'd want one where the new Shirley Chisholm Memorial is going to be, which is probably a couple of years away. And I know there's bike lane coming, but none of these things are imminent. So there's nothing stopping them from putting something there right now. So I'd like to ask them why they left that out.
That I will take the question, and we can forward that on to DOT with respect to that. So you're
Okay.
saying a bike station, where is this again? By
There's a station at Lincoln and Ocean Avenue,
Lincoln
and that's the furthest south on Ocean Avenue. There's nothing else.
Got it. All right, so we'll make the inquiry.
Right.
And I believe that
And
this
that
process-
corner of the park is still left out of City Bike. If you go a little bit west from Ocean Avenue, there's also nothing until you get to the parade grounds. So that's still the unserved part of the area.
Okay, if it goes past Parkside, that actually ends up being outside the district, because if it keeps going west, that's actually outside the district, but we
know,
can find out if
I
there's
know,
opportunities to ask
But
about that.
it's an odd thing to leave out that little corner.
Right, understood. No, definitely we can make sure we pass that as well, so we'll get some feedback with that. Paco, I see your hand raised as well. Paco, oh, you're
You
muted.
muted, Paco.
Sorry, I just deleted whatever note I had written, so I will come back in a minute when I can remember it or find that note.
No worries. Okay, all right, we're going to now go to item B. So the other request we had for DOT was for a district-wide bike lane study. So that is one of the district office did actually forward that request as well. So that is something we're looking.
I actually
sorry.
found the note, sorry.
go ahead.
It's
Sure.
on City Bike, if we can ask
Sure.
before we move on. In tandem with I guess over the next month, the deployment, it's essentially the first time for some people maybe that And City Bike's been around for what, a decade now? Like, I think most people know it. They know it's not here yet. Some people I'm sure are not excited, some are very excited. But either way, it's the first impression that they will make within CB9. And I've noticed at least that there are a lot of derelict bikes that have been abandoned or stolen, or for whatever reason, they're out of the boundaries of the current zone. But once City Bike expands within CB9, I think, you know, it's still the first impression. To be a good neighbor, I realize they're not going to send a whole crew out when there's one rogue bike, and I don't know how they do it, but I do think it might be worth pointing out to them to canvass the area as they're deploying, and they have teams just building the stations. They should collect all the garbage bikes that are around, because it just really sends a bad message, I think, of how they're treating this equipment. I know the bikes are, I think if you don't return a bike, it's like a $1,200 fine or something, or $1,200 charge on your credit card. Like, there's there's value in them. And so I would hate to see them just tossed around and it watered down the impression in the neighborhood for anyone who's debating if this is a good expansion or not.
Right. I won't speak for them. Just as you said, I think it's a $1,200 charge, but I think bikes themselves that's a significant capital investment. My feeling is when you see the derelict bikes, they somehow have been gotten off the system, and they ride them until the wheels fall off, you know, metaphorically speaking, and they leave them where they are. But we can definitely make the inquiry with Lyft and City Bike to see, okay, well, how do you track these things? Or if it's a matter of, you know, they ask for people to phone them in when they see them. Or, you know.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so the GPS may have been disabled at times, or people stripped them for parts. Like, kind of cost of doing business to some degree, I guess. There's thousands and thousands of bikes, but I know I've reported a few that for, I don't know, 3 months now have just sat there. There's one in the park on East New York Avenue in Albany, I think, Hamilton Mets Field. There's been a City Bike there, like right next to the sign saying Hamilton Mets Field. It's just been there for at least 2 months, maybe 3 months. Like, I've tweeted at City Bike. They said, we'll send a crew right out. And like, I get it. It's not as simple as that. But if they're coming to the neighborhood, I think they should do whatever they can to make a good impression. And they shouldn't leave their garbage in our neighborhood. You know, it should be a usable service.
That's a good question. And I'd want to find out what's the process for that as well. Because to your point, I mean, you know, for them, it's a loss. I don't know if they've written it up already, but, you know, it becomes garbage on our streets. So we need to have some kind of a plan where they address those things much more quickly. But thanks. I'm taking that note as well. So we'll make sure we relay that with DOT in terms of making sure that gets addressed.
Thank you.
That question is asked. All right, Ms. Fleming, I see you, and I see Ms. Westerdahl.
Okay, I stepped away for a moment, so I don't know if this is a Department of Transportation update or is it a City Bike update? Because I have two.
Right, we're going to go through. Right now, we're still working on City Bike, so we'll get to DOT stuff in a few.
So with regard to City Bike, do they kind of revisit their stations to see, because the usage of, say, the stations that they have for the bikes? And the only reason I'm saying that because up at the Armory, and I'm only there during the day, so I don't know what happens at night. But I see that the majority of the time, there's only like a couple of bikes there. I don't know how many stations are there. And I'm not a bike rider, so I don't know if the people come early to get their bikes to go to work and then they come back and drop it in the evening. But the 8 hours or so that I'm there, I noticed that in the mornings, it's not really, you know, packed. So the only reason I'm saying that, which leads into my other question, if we can get a bike rack, you know, if they're using all this space and it's not being occupied or filled in with bicycles, that could be my space for the bikes at the Armory. So I'm just saying, you know, do they revisit like Paco? You know, he said it costs $1,200. I'm sure it probably only cost them like maybe $300 to make, but they'll charge you $1,200 and the bike is there. So do they go back and just to see, you know, how their stations are doing? Are they upgrading, you know, and just checking them out? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. So I don't know if that's really a question or just something that,
I can, well, first of all, I think all good questions. We can definitely make the inquiry about the usage. If there's a way to get usage data so we can kind of figure out what's the, you know, what does it look like in the district. The only thing I would say, I mean, it almost makes sense that you would probably see them empty at certain periods of the day. So like if it's a morning rush, people working downtown, or they'll grab the bikes from there, go wherever they're going, and they're stored at the wherever the destinations, and then you'll see them come home at night when when everybody's coming back. So you'll probably see periods during the day where there are not a lot of bikes in the docks. That would be something. Now the thing is that in terms of, they do make adjustments. I know when we did the initial rollout, you would see them move stations. So depending on what's happening, if it's construction or depending, if there were complaints, I will say that they have been responsive on a couple of occasions where if they needed to move the docks, they were able to do that on occasion as well. So as the rollouts are happening, if we're seeing these things where they're not in a good location, or there's something that might be better in terms of the locations, we can make those recommendations. But I'll definitely make sure that we reach back to the DOT and try and get information about the usage, if that's on purpose, or how do they replenish if we need to get more bikes there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Westerdahl, we see you, and then we see Ms. Roberts.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the city bikes that there have been racks in CB9 for I would say more than a couple of years now. We've had them very close to where I live, and I am a city bike user, and it is like the racks in this area are often empty because we're on the outskirts of the usage. So people have to come to this area to get on them and use them. So they get taken because they're used so much, if that makes sense. And then people aren't necessarily like driving back to this neighborhood. And they do have vans that drive around and inspect the stations and move bikes around. There's also a plan where users, as a user, I could, if I bring my bike back to a certain station, I get some extra credits because they want you to leave these bikes at the stations that are on the outskirts, which are like, these are on, there's Sullivan Place, there's two big city bike racks near Ebbets Field. One of them is actually, I think it's a little bit questionable because there's some construction right next to a rack that's very much used, that it looks like nobody's going to be able to get their bike with that new construction by where the Bedford Sullivan old Firestone place is. It's like something's happening there, but they do move around the racks. They had some over on over near on Washington and Empire Boulevard. They took all of those out with that new construction. There was quite a lot there, and it looks like they're going to have to move the ones on Empire and Sullivan, or Bedford and Sullivan as well. So they do seem to upkeep them. Like the one on Sullivan has a couple that are broken. And what happens is people will try to return their bike, right? And there won't be, maybe there's not enough spots, or maybe you don't know, like there's a way that the rack can be jacked up. So you think your bike is hooked up, but it's not. And then somebody steals it, right? So then these stolen bikes, then the people get charged that think they lock their bike properly. And then those are the bikes that you see, around, that, and it's, usually City Bike will come and pick them up if you call. I mean, they seem to have ebbed and flowed as, the City Bike used to be, it's changed owners. It's now Lyft, right? And that has caused problems if you're a member, with how your fees and your charges, and it's not as good as it used to be, honestly. And I don't use it as much, now because it's cold and I actually got my own bike. So that's just like my perspective, just so what I've seen and what I know is as a user and having this in my neighborhood, they're really good for a lot of people. I think they're too much money, but there's ways you can get cheaper rental with your INDC card and various ways to get your rate lowered. So if anybody, I'll answer any questions if anybody wants to ask me anytime. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Westerdahl. All right, Ms. Robertson will see you, and then I see Mr. David R. will see you as well. But then we'll have to close. We'll have to move on to the agenda. Ms. Robertson?
Okay, my question is, are these bikes, do they have license plates like you would with a car? I only asked this because I almost had collisions crossing the street, whereas I'm looking in one direction and they're coming from another direction. And they're both using these lanes. And who would be held responsible, God forbid, you know, if I should get hurt? There should be something said of this, that there should be license plates or something to indicate that this person has used this bike and they're responsible for hitting someone. Okay, someone or a car, because they do ride recklessly.
They
That's
do
my
not
question.
have license plate, and if somebody has a better answer, please correct me. My understanding, they do not have license plates, but I believe they usually have numbers on the bike. So if you're at least
Okay.
able to capture the number and the time something happens, they should be able to track who had the bike at that given time. So I think that's the best they have at this time. But there's no, like, to your direct question, there's no licenses. There's no license plates on these bikes.
Okay, as long as we have a means of holding one responsible for, you know, their carelessness, you know, it cannot always be the driver or the pedestrian. It has to be the rider as well. Everyone has to be cautious of one another. So I just wanted to know if there was a way of capturing this so that they would be held responsible. Thank you.
Okay. All right. David R. All right, Mr. Graham, we'll take your question. Okay, I did say we'll close, but we'll take your question after that, and then we'll have to move on. Yes, David.
Yes, I wanted to speak a little bit what the previous person said. First of all, I want there are a lot of people in the community that don't like the bikes. They don't care that much to come on because they don't use the bikes. Most of the people that come to the meeting are probably people that use it. Because as the previous person, one of the reasons is, as the previous person was saying, that there's no responsibility, even if there would be license plates. I don't know how much that would help. If someone does get hurt, there's no insurance involved, and they drive the wrong way. It's hard. It makes it difficult both for cars. It doesn't make it dangerous for cars, but it does make it difficult to drive. And also there's a lot of children in this community walking around, and we see it time after time that a lot of these people, that a big percentage of the people that take these bikes don't follow the law. They drive on the sidewalk. It's hard. They drive the opposite way of traffic. It makes the streets less safe. And besides, for the drivers of the bike, it's very dangerous. Comparable, there are hundreds of people that die each year on bikes and in the city, and there's not that many people that ride bikes. So in general, there's a lot of people in this community that, even though they're not on the meeting because they don't drive the bikes, but they don't hold of this thing at all. If they do put it, if there's no choice, and for some reason they make a decision to put this, at least it doesn't have to eliminate parkings. They could put it on the sidewalk somewhere. They just put it on Eastern Parkway by Kingston and Eastern Parkway. It does eliminate a few parkings. It could have been put at least on the island. If they do put it, it's very hard to find parkings in these places, and taking away 2 more parking spaces or 3 more parking spaces does mean less. But that's not the main issue. But that could be fixed if they put it on a sidewalk. But it's a problem both of safety. There's no liability involved. There's no insurance involved, and it's not safe, especially for the children that are walking around on the street. That's what I generally say about the bikes. But at least if they put it, it shouldn't take away parking.
Okay. Just with respect to the parking issue, I know that typically there is leeway and there are conversations about that. I know at least with the first initial deployments, those were conversations we were able to have directly about not putting them on the street if we could avoid it. So a lot of the sites tended to be places where it's a wide sidewalk where you can put the bike onto the sidewalk. That's not to say that I'm pretty sure that there's other places that they're on the streets, but I know that at least that is potentially a conversation depending on where the deployment happens. And that's the one thing I'll probably say. If, as they're deploying, we see that there are better opportunities, we don't have to lose that. There's space on sidewalks, we can do that. Those are definitely conversations that we can initiate and have with City Bike.
Okay, thank you. And also bring up to them about the safety and about the liability and quality of life for people that walk on the street. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. All right,
And-
Mr. Graham.
2 seconds. That's why I was saying, do they go back to look at the usage? Because it's cool, I'm not against city bikes or anything, But if we're utilizing real estate, is it really giving us the bang for our buck? That's what I'm trying to say. From my point, by putting more and more and more stations, you know, are we really for all the neighborhoods benefiting from that? That's all. Thank
No, okay, thanks, duly noted. Mr. Graham.
Yeah, real quick, I want to emphasize what Felice said and what the gentleman said as far as liability is concerned with the bikes. I don't know, though, that this is an issue that should be raised solely by CB9 or any individual board. This has to be an issue that is addressed citywide, right? Liability is not something that only affects us. And I don't know that it is not. For all we know, this is an issue that is already being tackled. At least I would hope so. When you tell me that a company like Lyft bought City Bike, obviously they did so because there's a revenue stream there, a significant revenue stream. And so they should be held accountable, right? I don't see how it's any different than if Avis or Hertz was renting cars and the owners didn't need to have training or insurance. So I think if there's a way for this board to reach out to whomever, other boards, we need to find out the answer to this liability question.
No, duly noted. I have it down as a note. So we'll make sure we have that conversation with DOT as well. All right. The hands keep flying up here. All right. Yeah. Okay. Very quick questions. We will take them. Mr. Greenberg and Ms. De Jesus, and that's it. Really. After that, no more.
Sorry, this is not a question. I just have to respond to the so many misstatements made by David R.
Okay.
Whenever I feel like
Yeah, Mr.
we're
Greenberg, if I
making
could
progress
ask,
in the
because
city and I
Mr.
come to
Greenberg.
CB9.
I'm still here.
Here, the
Mr.
insane
Greenberg, I understand, but what I'm
rants.
saying is he's made his statement instead of having the argument there.
Well,
You know, it's
you
a
don't just
question.
let
And
someone state things that are wrong and let it go.
well, what I'm saying is, I mean, you know, go ahead, finish your point, and please be brief because we have to move on.
I will. I wasn't going to say anything, but you know, I've heard so many times bicyclists don't follow the rules and everyone else does. And every study has shown that that is just not true. Hundreds and hundreds of people are killed by drivers every year. How many are killed by cyclists? One or two? That's also too many. But the issue here is drivers.
Okay, Mr.
But
Okay.
count the number of
That's
cars
all I
on the
need to say.
Sir. We allowed you to have the floor, Mr. Greenberg. You're making your point. Are you finished?
I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, but
Okay. No, sir. We're not going to go. We can't do the back and forth. You've given your statement. Mr. Greenberg has given his opinion, and that's it. When there's the appropriate time, we will have a conversation, discussion about it. But we can't do a back and forth right now. Ms. De Jesus, and then we're going to move on.
Since we're short on time, I suggest that going forward for the Zoom meetings, we have the comment section enabled so that, like the chat section, so then if there is some misstatements or, you know, we have opinions to address, we can continue to do so on the side and continue on with the meeting for the sake of time. And I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. De Jesus. Okay, all right, we are going to move on. So item B was the district-wide bike lane study. So that is something we've discussed. That is an issue that we've raised with DOT. So again, so that is one of the things that we put on our list of issues that need to be addressed, that we want for DOT to begin that process of a bike lane study, what that entails, what kinds of information do they gather, what's the scope, all that other information. So that way we can kind of understand what that would require and what that might look like in the district. So scheduled to actually have a call. So we did speak with our liaison, a DOT liaison. So we are probably going to have a prep call in the next week or so, myself and the district manager. So I'll have some additional information to provide about that. But these are things we've already flagged for DOT to start researching. So that way, when they do come in for the March meeting, they're able to address those things instead of coming in cold and taking it right there. So there will be a call and we'll be addressing some of these issues with respect to that. Okay, next item would be item C. Item C is a request. So this is stemming from a motion that was taken by the committee, I think in November or December. And in that meeting, I think there was a request for DDC to look at that Lincoln Road, Flatbush, Washington intersection. So the district manager actually reached out. So what we're looking to do, so he reached out saying that we wanted to have a conversation with that. What we are currently trying to schedule is an actual site visit to walk on that corridor with DDC, with DOT, and with representatives from CV9 as well. So we can look, DOT and DDC can discuss what exactly is being done, and we will have an opportunity to point out exactly where the issues are and get some information in terms of what can be done to make sure that that corridor is made safer. So that is something that we've requested that they schedule that date. Once we're able to get that, or we can play around some dates, the invitation will be extended to the Transportation Committee members. Hopefully you'll be able to come, or if you're not able to make it, at least you can give information in terms of what information do you need us to relay to those two agencies with respect to that corridor. But that'll be something that we're trying to coordinate as soon as possible. And, you know, we'll send that by email to the Transportation Committee members. I do see, I'm not sure, Paco, I do see your hand up. Mr. David, do you have a question with respect to Lincoln Road, or is that hand from the last one?
Well, that was a mistake. My hand was up. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
No worries.
I shouldn't respond about previous, right? You don't want me to respond, right? Okay.
Nope.
All right, no problem. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. No worries. Okay. So Paco, I see you. Ms. Westerdahl, I see you as well. Go ahead, Paco. You have the floor.
So an update on that as well. I've also been in touch with the DDC, with the CCL, the Community Construction Liaison, and they had said they were the project was on hold during the winter. But in March, I mean, our next meeting is March, like they're probably wrapping it up in March. So
Right.
I would really stress that time is rather urgent. And they also had said, I was the one who had made that motion before, and I had been in touch with DDC many times over the last year, explaining my concern and then the concern of the committee. And they had said that they already reached out to DOT and asked that it's up to DOT right now to decide if they're going to put a barrier in, or if they'll let it just be a sidewalk and then the cars will.
And that's part of the reason, yeah, and that's part of the reason why we wanted the two of them there, because rather than say, well, DDC, what are you doing? They'd be like, oh no, that's DOT. Or, you know, you look to DOT and DOT's all, DDC was supposed to handle that. We asked for the two agencies to be there, because we understand that. I think, and to your point, I believe they said the construction is expected, whatever DDC is doing is expected to be done by March. So you're correct with that. But, you know, if whatever they've done still doesn't satisfy us, then you know what? Okay, fine, let's go to phase two. What are you going to do to fix this intersection with respect to that? And there's probably some things that in the toolkit for DOT that they can take care of at that time. But we want to just make sure that all the parties are there so that we can tell them exactly what the issues and challenges are, and they can develop whatever solution they need to in terms of making sure that we're improving safety on that corridor.
Just being realistic, considering that we've asked DOT to come to the last like 8 meetings and they have not. I mean, do we have any faith that this is actually going to happen?
This one is these conversations are, you know, I actually spoke to the liaison directly as well today, and I let her know that no, this is a conversation. You know, she apologized because originally she had confirmed that she was going to be able to make it, but there was a conflict. But she did say that one, we are going to have this conversation, so there'll be a phone conversation with her, myself, and the district manager to talk about the issues we're discussing this evening. And they also made the commitment that will be DOT representation for the next month.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll be definitely following up with the committee on this. Ms. Westerdahl.
Oh, I just wanted to add that I would like to be included in that street meeting, if possible.
Okay, we'll see, because I don't know what, you know, if there's any parameters. I mean, it should be outside. I don't think there's an issue with that. We'll see. We'll see what we can do.
It's not open, it's closed.
I don't know. I mean, you know, typically I try not to have meetings with 75 people. So at the very least, if there's DOT, if there's DDC, and a reasonable number from the committee, it's like in terms of, you know, people who've had those issues. If it's open, absolutely, we can extend the invite.
Yeah, I doubt it's going to be 75 people, friend. But yes, I'd love to be invited and included. Maybe other people would as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Story.
Yes, did any of the deployment, did any of that go through ULURP, or was there any sort of process as far as where the bikes would be, that it went through the community boards for like approval, like a vote or anything through ULURP?
No, that's strictly done through the through DOT.
Gotcha. And are all the city bikes off of the street or any of them like on the sidewalks where they're placed on the sidewalk or anything like that?
Depends on the location. Some are on the street, some are on the sidewalk.
Gotcha.
All the bikes in our district are on the sidewalk so far.
Because I would think if they're using the sidewalk and if it's a private company, I would think that that would have to go through ULURP because you're basically there's things in ULURP where you're using the space.
It's a license. DOT generally controls the sidewalks, so I think they have the statutory authority to give that license to the company. If there were any hearings or anything like that, it probably predated actually giving the license to City Bike.
Right, because I know franchises have to go through ULURP, but I won't continue the point here. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. We are now going to move on to item D, the amendment on the, yes. So item D is for the Transportation Town Hall. So this is a conversation that we wanted to have with respect, especially to the Flatbush corridor. So DOT did come and they presented before this committee. I believe it was October or November. I want to say it was the October meeting or so. What we wanted to do is take that next step in terms of making sure there was community-wide engagement in the district. So what we wanted to do was actually host a town hall. We had tried to do it earlier, well, like late last month. The timing did not work for that. So we postponed it to February 23rd is the working date that we are going for right now. So really the main goal, the main purpose of this town hall would be is to solicit feedback with respect to what do we want to see on that Flatbush corridor. So DOT and MTA have led with they want to improve bus times, but I think even based on the conversation we had with DOT, we understand that there are a lot of other considerations that we would want to have on that Flatbush corridor, particularly around that section that lies within CD9, because it does get much narrower, and I think it does change some of the dynamics in terms of what you would actually configure that to be. So we want to get feedback from the residents, from the merchants, from cyclists, from motorists, from everyone who uses that stretch in terms of what things should we be looking for and what things should be prioritized on that stretch. So whether it be bicycle lanes, whether it be bus lanes, do we need to have seating as well down there? Do we need to be looking at, and this is my own personal pitch, even different modes of transportation that can navigate the stretch more easily? But all to say that we want to get that feedback. So we're looking to schedule this for the 23rd. At this time, what I would like to get from the Transportation Committee is a number of people, if we can get a list of people who would be willing to volunteer to serve as facilitators for that. Part of what we're looking at is we would have a presentation by DOT giving something similar to what we saw in terms of laying out some of the tools in the toolkit, but then being able to go to breakout rooms and really ask the questions in terms of what would we look at, what would we look for, what are the main concerns in that stretch. So we'd be looking for probably anywhere between four to six. We'll determine that shortly as we're still refining the process of 4 to 6 facilitators. If there are any members of, particularly if there are any members of the Transportation Committee who would like to serve as facilitators, and you're available on the 23rd, please let us know. So that way we can put you down. We're still in the process of creating the format for this, so there would be a subsequent call or meetings in terms of making sure that we're all prepared for that. But again, so that's looking for February 23rd, and we would we're going to have DOT there. Representatives from DOT will be there. We're looking for the elected officials to also be there, but mainly we want people to turn out. And I guess the last piece of the ask would be, if you have access to any networks that we should be reaching out to, please let the district office know. We would like to be able to connect with merchants. We'd like to be able to connect with commuter, groups that commute on the corridor, different groups that we could reach out to make sure that hopefully they'll be able to join us and provide their views in terms of that corridor. We'll take questions with respect to that right now.
Sorry, Fred, that's school vacation week. Does everyone know that?
Is it? Okay.
I mean, if you want good turnout, that might not be the right week.
Okay, when we say schools, okay, so.
Public schools are closed that week.
Okay, what's that's what, winter recess, right?
Yeah,
Winter
late
recess?
this year.
Okay. Is it a religious holiday or that's the one thing I'm
No, it's President's Week.
Just President's Week. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we would
I'm
be-
here. It doesn't matter to me. I just thought if the
Yeah.
goal is to get as many people as possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I haven't had midwinter's week recess in years
Yeah,
over
same
here too,
here.
so. But that's good for us to know as well, because that might affect the schools, or maybe we get to them earlier. It's like if they need to get word to parents
Right.
first, so we can always try and do that, but that's good to know though. But thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, are there any other questions, comments?
Yeah, Fred, real quick, this is an in-person or a virtual meeting?
It'll be virtual. This will be virtual.
Okay, and so when you speak of facilitators, you mean someone in a breakout room or something like that?
Correct. So you'd be in the breakout rooms. We're developing questions, leading questions in terms of being able to get some of the feedback, kind of moving those through. Hopefully we'll be able to get some good data out of that as well. But those are being developed, and that would be something that we pass out to the facilitators. We'll have planning and coordination calls prior. Was that, I saw your hand up, you want to volunteer?
Wasn't volunteering yet, but
We got time, I'll
let's
talk
see.
to you later.
All right.
Yeah, no pressure. You don't have to do it today. Tomorrow's fine. Okay, Ms. Westerdahl, I see you. Are there any other questions? Because then otherwise I would want to move on to the next item.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, this town hall meeting is specifically to discuss the Flatbush corridor changes. I'm wondering about the bus changes beyond the Flatbush corridor and other parts of the CV9. I went to the meeting last night, the DOT meeting about the bus routes, and was hoping that would be discussed tonight.
And that was part of the amended agenda. So that is my actual item E that I wanted to discuss the bus network redesign. Just to kind of preface, the original thought was, I was wondering, the original thought was perhaps we can combine these, but I think if we're looking at a time frame, we're looking between an hour, hour and a half. I didn't want to try and cram too much in there where there's just so much we can't cover the ground we wanted to cover. But that is dialogue we want to continue with respect to the bus network redesign. And next item, I'm going to touch on that a little bit more as well. Okay, are there any other questions with respect to town hall? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much for that. We're going to go to item E on the agenda, the amended agenda, the bus network redesign. So yes, on the 7th, there was a district level conversation that happened with the bus net with respect to the bus network redesign. So I think originally there were some conversations that were supposed to be in general, borough-wide. They started the district level outreach for that. So I believe Tuesday was supposed to be our go on that. And I want to open the floor because unfortunately I wasn't able to attend. I had a conflict with a Brooklyn Borough Board meeting. Were there any significant takeaways from that meeting? And I wanted to kind of map out next steps with respect to, I asked the district office to reach out to MTA to kind of get feedback and a summary of that meeting, what came out of that. If there are any proposed changes that have already been, things that are already out there, and if there's any feedback that we've got that we want to make sure we add in terms of that as well. I know I threw a lot out there.
I'm sorry. My name is David Kupferberg. I am the Vice President of Bus Advocacy for Passengers United. Our website is passengersunited.org. I was there at the redesign meeting yesterday.
Okay.
And there were many concerns concerning the shifting of the B49 from Bedford Rogers to New York Nostrand. Though the terminals though the northern terminal will remain the same. What they want to do is bring the B44 local to mimic the routing of the B44 SBS via Nostrand Rogers, and discontinue service along Bedford Avenue, south of Fulton Street.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So that's definitely something we will need to discuss as a committee as well. Thank you for that update. Were there, okay, Paco, I see you, and Teresa, I do see your hand up, so we'll take you if you have a question with respect to that as well. Well, actually, let's reverse that because I think Teresa had a question before, and I kind of touched on that. Ms. Westerdahl, go ahead.
Yeah, I was at the meeting as well, and I echo David in that there was a lot of concern. And I think we need to look at that, the removal of the bus route from Bedford. I guess it's the B43, is that correct, David? And
No, no,
the
no, no, no,
what do you mean?
B49.
Oh, B49, I'm sorry. The bus route on Bedford, they're moving it to Nostrand. So there's quite significant changes, like the bus stop on Empire and Sterling is going to be changed. There's going to be quite a bit of bus is routed onto Nostrand. So it was significant with Ebbets Field and Tivoli Towers. As we know, there's quite a big senior population there.
Yeah.
So they would have to walk over to Nostrand to get a bus.
Or Flatbush Avenue for that matter.
Yeah, it seems pretty not ideal, not good at all. And there's
Well-
a few more changes like that that we should look at and be ready to speak on. That was the first I'd really looked at it significantly, but
Yeah.
I know it's like we need to look at that at transportation or our board, and probably I know at the meeting, Brian Cunningham's representative was there, but nobody from Crystal's office was there. So
If it was up to me, I would keep the B44 local routing as is. And instead streamline the B49 via Ocean Avenue and Empire Boulevard instead. As that bus service is, of course, also needed on Bedford Avenue, Rogers Avenue, a new route would have to be created. I'll call it the B50.
Okay.
yeah,
Definitely
it's
some
quite
information.
significant for seniors and school children, like a very long walks for them with some of these changes. And that's who, isn't often able to attend these online meetings. They don't have internet service. It's,
Of course.
we need to
Definitely
get
have
word
some-
out to them.
Okay, no, absolutely. So these are definitely,
And
these are good points
if
for
it
us
was
to bring up.
also up to me, as that the B43 would be duplicative for my B49 via Empire Boulevard, I think it should go to Downstate Medical Center. But that's up to, but that's not up to, not up to me.
And these will all be conversations. All right, I just want to make sure we're moving along. So Paco, I see you. Ms. Robertson, I see you after that. And Ms. G, I see you. We'll take your question after that. Go ahead, Paco.
So I wasn't able to attend last night's presentation, but I saw it when it was first announced or in another spot. And I noticed, I would agree with some of the comments made that it is a change. And I think it's valid to, I mean, so everyone's going to be impacted. Some will like the changes, some won't. They're not going to please everybody. I think that just needs to be noted. I mean, also a lot of bus stops are going to be removed because so many of them are so close together that it stops every single block and that just slows the bus down. So
Actually, it doesn't actually.
Excuse me.
Well, I'm sorry, sir. We have to make sure
My
that
bad,
we're respecting
my
people.
bad.
Thank you.
So
Go ahead, Paco, continue.
there's going to be changes no matter what, but I think overall, I do appreciate their thinking of making better use of the bus only lanes on that currently exist on Rogers and Nostrand, rather than putting a bus like on New York Avenue or something, or even Bedford that's much narrower and does not have a dedicated bus lane. So I think their overall intention is a good one, and I hope would speed up service. And in tandem with the changes on these north-south streets, there was also a plan, I think it was called the B10, was going to be a new route along. They wanted to make more use of Empire Boulevard as well, to have an east-west connector that I believe it would go kind of all along Empire Boulevard up to East New York Avenue and towards Brownsville over there. So I think it's there's also some potentially nice expansions of service in our district.
Okay, thank you for that. Ms. Robertson and then Ms. G.
Okay, I'm gonna keep mine short. I was raised over here in this neighborhood, in this community. I don't understand what is the fascination in the destruction of the community. Okay, let me start there. I say that to say this. They had cut off the 48 bus. It took our community, they only asked for 1,500 to sign a petition. It was 4,000 of us because these buses connect to other areas of the community. Okay, it's vital. So I don't understand the fascination of the destruction. Okay, you need to speak to people that have been living here. My parents, they moved in this community in 1970. So I know the impact that it would take. Okay, so I wish I would have been there yesterday. I would have stated, you got to be smart in what you're doing, because right now they're not. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Robertson. All right, Ms. G and Ms. Fleming, and did you have another comment, Mr. Kupferberg?
Yes, there's also,
Hold on, I just want to take them only because they haven't spoken yet, so let me get
Yes,
them first,
I
and then we
do.
can come back. Okay,
yes, I do.
Ms. G.
Okay, good evening. I did attend part of the MTA proposal for redesigning the buses. There was no real historical or analysis given as to why they're doing this, other than to say it's going to make things faster, which is, depending on who you talk to, debatable. But what I will say is that it will be a tremendous hardship for the Bedford Avenue bus to be rerouted. It would also be a hardship for, I know they're talking about taking the 43 bus and having it run on the same line as the 10. It's just a lot of devastation, and I'm very concerned for the seniors and the disabled who have to now go longer distances to get to a bus. And then I'm also curious about the involvement of the community, because there were not as many people on the site. And I think it's probably in regard because of the outreach efforts that are made. I'm sure if people in Ebbets Field knew about what was going on, other community members, then there would be more involvement. But this plan is not a good plan from what I can see. It's not a good plan. And we need to have more involvement in the community, perhaps robocalls from the politicians, because they always call to tell you to vote for them. But other than that, you don't get a robocall. And definitely include the proposal, the draft proposal to have the representatives come there for the town hall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fleming.
Hi, so here I am again talking about the data. I appreciate them talking about the use of the, Paco talking about the use of the bus lanes that are already dedicated going down Nostrand Avenue. But again, want to know about the data. What does the data say? Who is actually using the bus? And what times are they actually using these buses? Because I'm a car driver. I'm not biking, I'm not using the scooter, none of that. But I do walk. But what is the data? What does that show? Who's actually using this bus? And is it going to pose a hardship, like it had mentioned, to other folks? So if we can see what the data is saying, then we can make intelligent decision on whether or not it will be fruitful for them to make these changes. If the data isn't really saying that the people that they're servicing will benefit greater from this particular relocation of the bus lines. That's it. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for the comment. Okay, at this time, we will take seconds. Mr. Kupferberg, I see you. Paco, do you have you got another round? Okay. Mr. Kupferberg, we'll see you, and then we're gonna have to close out. We're gonna close out on you then. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, the MTA does acknowledge that that since the days of the trolley, there has been a very good core network. There are also other things going on. The B43 currently operates via Empire Boulevard and then goes Kingston, Brooklyn, then through Tompkins, and then further north. What they want to do with the B16 also is to send it to Clarkson and Utica to terminate Utica, and in turn extend the B48 via Ocean Avenue to Parkside Avenue. I think this is foolish because for the B16 there is nowhere in the area to effectively turn buses at Utica and Clarkson. I think the B16 should operate to the Sutter Avenue Rutland Road station to facilitate transferring. The B46 local and SBS should stop at Utica and Clarkson. Right now, it only stops at Winthrop. I said right now they stop at Winthrop. The current SBS stop at Utica Avenue and Winthrop Street should be preserved for local service. But as I said, because of this, because I also think that I said that the B49 should be streamlined via Ocean Empire, the B43 should go to the Downstate Medical Center, Kings County Hospital, but that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Sword, we'll take you and we're going to close on you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whenever is there a town hall meeting on this expected, on the bus redesign, anything like that, or nothing yet like that?
Nothing planned as yet, but this is definitely going to be something at the very least on the agenda for the March meeting for transportation.
Right. So what I would suggest, just and I said this, I was at the meeting last night. If they could make it, or if maybe the community board could ask if the MTA could make it a little bit simpler in terms of explaining it community district specific as to what the changes are. So like, where drivers can see, where people could see, like I made a map. I made a map on a color printer just of Community Board 9 to sort of understand it. So there's before, then there's after in terms of what the changes are, because to see what the changes are, you have to go to a specific website. And like the way that I did it was you have to toggle over it. There's no charts. So if they have a physical chart saying before, after, and then a third one or something saying, here's what the changes are. For instance, like Empire Boulevard is going to change from Kingston over, where it's going to be connected. So there's a whole bunch over there. What's that change? And then what's the consequences of that? Somebody was mentioning about the data. What is there going to be more traffic as a result of having more buses, going on Empire? And is that going to affect, a certain sort of traffic flow where they can anticipate it? Or if somebody says, if a bus is moved in a certain way, what different buses now will affect it? Like if there's something running on Remsen, maybe that's like looks like the 17. Can you now, is there going to be anticipated that people can go to like the Empire Boulevard bus and take that right over to the park? So something like a little bit more detailed in terms of saying, as a result of the change, here's the pluses and the minuses that we anticipate. Here's maybe the travel times that we anticipate. More data that's community board specific with charts, simple charts, because all there is now is there's a website and you toggle over it. It's the whole borough.
No, and points definitely well taken in terms of, I think that's part of what we want to get is that data that's specific to the district. And I think it's very important that we understand what these changes are, because we're talking through it. In my mind, I can picture some of it, but I think it's a lot better if we have it visually where we can see, this is what current state is, this is what the proposal is, and these are the changes. And I think it's been said a number of times in terms of, well, what's the data that's even recommending this is something that we would even entertain. So what I want to do is next, through the district office, get that information, make that request so we can get that. Hopefully we have it before the committee, and we can plan that next step in terms of engagement in terms, for the district. How do we get to people? How do we let people know? How do we get people to weigh in? The example is that, so, does Ebbets Field know about this? Does Tivoli Towers know about this? Is there any feedback from merchants along there as well in terms of if you're moving bus route, bus lanes and bus routes? How does that affect economically the things in the district?
And just to add, maybe if some of the guys who are the bus guys or some people who have a certain expertise, if they maybe could add also to say, okay, this is what's going to happen when you do this change. We know the bus system. This is what's going to probably happen also as like an indirect effect where people may do 1, 2, and 3 and taking certain other buses or connectors or whatever's, because they may see stuff that a lot of people can't see right off the bat. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. All right. I did say we were gonna close on, okay, Mr. Herbert, I do see, Paco, did you have a comeback? Let me get 1 second. I see Mr. Herbert's hand up. Let me just get him the first time and this is it now.
Yeah, this is
Close on
it.
Paco.
Yeah,
Close on
this
Paco
is,
after you. Go ahead, sir.
yeah, this is real quick. Thanks for taking me. If anybody's looking for data on usage of city bike system, city bikes or MTA data, there's a website called City Bike System Data, and it shows the load flow of city bikes, you know, from one place to another, different times. We pull reports for any borough. And I believe there is another website. I'm doing this from memory now. It's MTA Open Data, and it shows the flow of passengers and customers throughout the entire system on bus and trains. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Paco, close us out, sir.
So I just wanted to comment on what Jay said and tell everyone that I think all the things you're asking to be seen, the exact data of what if this new route is here, what changes will be done, very important details to know. But I mean, that's all there on the website. They have a very extensive website that I've spent a lot of time just looking at our neighborhood. And I actually really am impressed by. It'd be overwhelming if it was printed out. It'd be a 5,000 page book, but they do it in multiple ways. But I'd encourage everyone to look at or just Google Brooklyn bus redesign and you'll get right to it. But you can look exactly for the things Jay was asking about of which route, what potential route there are. You could do it with a map just on paper. They really do have a lot of data there. And the expected changes to frequency of service and all that sort of stuff. So I don't want, whether people like the changes or not, I don't want people to think that all that data isn't already readily available.
No, thank you very much for that. And part of what we're going to do is, like, again, I just want to make sure that from the district office perspective, we get that data, and particularly for the district. Some of what I've heard is that, there's a lot of it, but sometimes that's overwhelming. So I at least want to make sure that we can get it specific to CB9 and, and adjacent places to see where these changes are and how they affect the district specifically. But thank you for that point though, Paco. All right. Okay, that was the last question. We're going to move on. So actually, we are almost through the agenda. We have no old business at this time. There was nothing that was laid on the table. At this time, we'll consider, is there any new business for the committee to be taking up? Do we have any new business? Ms. Westerdahl.
Yeah, I just want to mention that construction on Neil Firestone lot of Bedford, Empire, Sullivan, that it's going to affect the city bikes that are there. It's going to affect the bus stop that's there. They're making the walls, they're drilling holes in there. They're extending the walls of the site on three different streets, excuse me, not four, three. And it's on Bedford in particular, it's come out so far that the slant from where the driveway was is you have to, somebody in a wheelchair or a walker, and there's quite a few people that use that from coming from Ebbets and Tivoli to get the bus that's, stops over. There's like two bus stops, one is on Bedford and one on Empire right there. They can't, it's really difficult to navigate even as a walker because the slant is so, it's a big slant that goes into the road and there's no curb anymore and it's narrow. So it's really difficult. I don't even know if it's legal, I don't know what's going to happen there, but I consider it dangerous and hazardous. I don't know where they're going to put the city bikes, but it's happening right now. Like today, I sent a picture to the board of the Empire when they were, or excuse me, the Bedford, when they extended that wall. That's done. And that's very narrow and it's very difficult to walk there, especially if you're a disabled person. And the Sullivan and the Empire, where the bus stop is right in front of that site, it's going to be very narrow there as well. They were installing a new wall that extends quite a bit out. So it's dangerous. You know, there's like, I could barely get by there and probably will avoid going that way because I go that way like several times a day to go to the park with my dog, honestly. So I'm concerned about residents in that area and what's happening there. I think they should level out the sidewalk or build out in the street or something. You know, there's a bike lane there as well. So it's dangerous.
Yeah, that I couldn't speak to. If you sent pictures already to the district office, we can have that conversation. Because it's construction, there's definitely, you know, there's going to be some I don't want to say adjustments. There's going to be some impacts to the, you know, the traffic flow and sidewalks and everything like that for some time until they complete that. So like, for example, the city bikes, yeah, I'd be pretty sure they're going to end up moving that at least for some period of time. Depending on what comes back afterwards, then, you know, I think that's when they'll probably consider the placements, whether it stays there, if it goes to the street, if it stays on the sidewalk, if it's placed on the sidewalk. And I'm assuming that some of the grading will change as well once they actually have a building. All those slants were because there was a garage there and you needed access to the sidewalk. If they're putting a building there, you're not going to need all of that, I'm pretty sure. So that will change as well. But if there are immediate safety concerns, if you send those pictures over, the district office can definitely look at that and address that. There may be signage. Don't want to put it out there, but depending if it's a dangerous situation, they may close the sidewalk temporarily while they're doing that construction, or at least that piece. But we'll be able to get more information.
I did send some pictures.
Okay.
I didn't send the newer ones, but Mia sent me back a video to watch because I was concerned. I just wanted to know what the regulations are and what they should be doing because it seems so unsafe to me. I did send a report, 311 report, but that was a couple days ago, but it was just Bedford that was affected. Now it's these other two they're adding today, the other two streets. So I'd really, you know, I was hoping for the office to help me find the regulations just to know what's required, and that didn't happen. And I'd like that help and support and to know, you know, because oftentimes I've noticed that development and construction sites do not follow the regulations and they put people at risk. It's happened most every time. So there's been a development here. So I need some help and my neighbors need some help with that, please.
Okay. No, I mean, you took the right steps. So you've already, you know, got a 311 complaint in there. The assistant district manager is here. She's on it as well. So we'll be able to get that. And again, so we'll be able to get somebody to come and survey the safety of the situation and take appropriate action at that point. But thank you for bringing that up as well. So we'll make sure we look at that.
Oh, Ms. Westerdahl, if you can email in that 311 number, that'd be great. We can get that over to our DOB liaison. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Ms. Fleming and Mr. Kupferberg will see you. Ms. Fleming.
Hi, Dante sent over some DOT outstanding stuff, issues or things that were going on, because I don't know if we're really talking about DOT, but I just want to just get a point of clarification of one item on that list. I'm not sure if you're able to prepare to answer a question at this time, or do I need to wait?
Probably not, but let's shoot. What do you have?
Okay, it says that city racks on Rogers Avenue between Carroll and President. Do we know where that's supposed to be? Is it going to be on the west side? No, on the east side or the west side of Rogers Avenue between Carroll and President? I was just trying to find this point of clarification where they put the city racks. So city racks, is that bike racks when they say city racks?
I believe so.
Yeah, but I think it's still pending. It's a pending matter. Diana will be updating us shortly.
So but what side of the street is it going to be on? Because we have all that stuff going on with the plumber people on the west side.
Yeah, that hasn't been clarified yet. So when we receive the update, we'll have a updated location.
Right, because on the other side is the bus stop there. And then a part of Rogers Avenue, they have they have those new restaurants closer to President. So I was just wondering where they were going to put that.
Okay. As I said before, so I have a call, you know, Dante and I will be scheduling a call with DOT. So we'll make sure we ask that question as part of that call too. So I'll try and see if we can get you an answer, you know, from there.
Thank you. That's it.
But it just offers a follow-up. Okay. All right. All right, I believe that is all we have, or is there any other new business? Mr. Kupferberg, I see.
Well, I forgot to say that luckily for you, the MTA and DOT, I actually analyze each and every bus stop within Brooklyn on a case-by-case basis. And I have them on spreadsheets in a separate file, and I make a similar conclusion. 95% of the stops in Brooklyn are good exactly the way they are. Do you want me to send them to you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's send that over. Yeah, we can look at that as well.
Sure. Your email is bk09-1@cbnyc.gov, right?
Correct, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's all we have. I believe that's all we have. Ms. Westerdahl, is that hand up from the last question or something new?
No, that's it. I'll put it down.
Oh, okay. All right then. Okay. All right. So seeing no other new business, we have completed our agenda for today. I want to thank all the members of the Transportation Committee for coming. Just as a quick note, so I know that there were discussions with regards to members who are not showing up. So we've already begun the process of cleaning rosters. So there were two members of the committee who were removed. Hopefully that enables us to make sure that we're clean, we're at fighting weight, and we're going to be continuing to do the work for the committee and for the board. I thank everyone who was here for your presence, for your diligence, for everything you do. We got a lot of work we're going to be doing over the next couple of months, over the next few months, actually. So again, just keep an eye. If you have any interest in participating in the town hall, please send an email to the district office. We're going to start having coordination calls. We'll take care of that. We're getting information with respect to the bus network redesign as well. We're going to try and compile that. That will definitely show up on our next meeting's agenda. So we're going to have to be dedicating some time to that as well and thinking what other outreach activities we need to do. We have DOT is scheduled to come as well. We're going to try and make sure that they are addressing as many of the points that are on the list. Paco, I know that you had sent some information as well. We're going to make sure that gets integrated. The idea being we want to make sure that this is a running tab of all the stuff they owe us and the things that they need to get answers for. And again, we want to take the conversation from they say no to, well, what can you do for us in terms of taking care of the situations that exist in the district? Everyone, thank you. Everyone, stay safe, take care. Please remember, if you see something, always contact the district office. If you dial 311, great. Make sure you relay that same information to the district office, because that way they'll have the ability to track it as well and try and see if they can get resolution. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, it's been moved. Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. Any objection to us adjourning?
None.
Graham has spoken for us all. Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Time is now 8:28 p.m. Everyone, thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Night.